Let me get started. So, y'all decided to take this class with me. This is like our first day of official lecture. I'm going to call it day one. Intro to stats. And in fact, none of you really, unless you've taken this class before, have a big picture idea of what the hell we're even going to do in here. Stats is a big word that gets used a lot in the news and shit like that. We use it, but a lot of us don't really know what it is. So maybe let's just start off with talking about what statistics are. Statistics are a numerical summary of the data regarding a sample of the population. That's what statistics are. Now, there's another word that has a definition that is almost identical to this. Parameter. Are a numerical summary. When I say almost identical, I flat out mean almost identical. Are a numerical summary of the data regarding a population. Were you able to find it?
Yes.
Awesome.
You. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for helping her.
Yes.
Was it easy to find once it was pointed out?
Yes.
It just had like cashier on the fucking front page.
Yeah. They pretty much had a beacon and flashlight.
It's so easy to miss the fucking obvious.
Yes. For my own personal problem.
Oh fuck, I gotta do my parking permit this week. Parking permits, they start doing it on what, 28th?
Yes.
On Monday, next Monday?
I'm going a whole semester without behind it.
Yeah, good luck with that. I ain't fucking taking that chance. Let me message my wife real quick as a reminder, because I have thought about this like 4 fucking times today and I haven't done it yet. David, do your parking permit when you get home. She is my note to self thing. She gets a lot of. She has yet to tell me to like learn how to use the notepad in your phone. But she lets me text her shit all the like. I'll do that all the time. Note to self, and I'll like, remind myself of what to do. All right, so these are pretty similar, aren't they? A numerical summary of the data regarding a sample. The sample is like a subset, a small portion of. So a sample of the population is like a small portion of the population. That's another way of looking at what sample means. Numerical means number. So whatever we're looking at, we're getting like a number to use to represent a population. A lot of common ones that we use, like numerical summaries that we use a lot in this class. We will see proportion, which is really like what percentage of the population has a specific trait or doesn't have it. We will look at the mean, and the mean is also known as the average. And we'll look at something like called standard deviation. And variance. These are the big ones that we use the most in this class. And those will all eventually be defined for you. Those are the big four. So why bother with a sample of the population when we could just ask the population? The whole group. Dark Souls, you're in another spot.
And I have to find a computer that was working, I didn't realize it worked again.
What's your name?
Jackie,
Jackie.
it's.
Your Dark
easier
Souls.
to, yeah, sample than it is to do all of them.
I'm sorry, say that
I
again?
would say it's easier to do a sample than it is to do the whole group,
Why?
because less people.
We do the sample because there's less people. If we're like, population is very specific, and it doesn't need to be like, we don't need to be talking about like all of the US or global population. We don't even need to be talking about all of the state of California. We could just be talking about like COS students or students that take classes on the Tulare campus. We define what the population is, but even if it's something like COS students, there's like 15,000 students or so. You're like, how the hell do they fit on these campuses? We have several people that are strictly online. They do online classes from other states. Others are here in like, there's a lot of people in the day, but you guys are in the evening class. There's less around on the evening. We managed to get some people in throughout the year. We had like 15,000. Asking 15,000 people even one fucking question would take so damn long. So survey says, top survey answer, number one, time constraints. It takes too long. It's just not feasible. Even if it's something people can answer quickly, it just would. Even if I could ask a question and get an answer in 1 second, 50, and there was no wait between students, that's still 15,000 seconds. How many minutes is that? 15,000 seconds is 250 minutes. That's a little over 4 hours. That's assuming the question and answer took 1 second and there was no gap in time between student after student after student. To me, no question is going to take that long. Normally, we're looking at least a minute if you're lucky. Plus all the time waiting for the next person. It takes forever. So I wouldn't be able to do it by myself. So what is an option I could do if I really wanted to pull the population? How could I pull the population where I don't need to worry about my time? Well, even with a sample, well, ignore the sample for now. Go ahead, Johnny.
I was saying like a survey or something.
A survey, but like, even like, if I don't want to get a survey, what do I gotta do?
Asking person.
I gotta get other people to do it. Right? Who here is gonna voluntarily do my surveys for me? No one? So I'd have to pay you. There's number two. Money. Money constraints or restrictions. Constraints means the same thing as like restrictions. It costs money. Even if I'm not paying someone to do it, I gotta put the data somewhere. I might be having them fill out a form. If not, if I'm using like a tablet, I'm having enter shit on the tablet. I have to buy the tablet. It costs money to do this stuff. You'd have to do that with like the sample, but those are the big ones, and it's also like unrealistic to expect that we're gonna get every single person to answer. There's always gonna be somebody that just says, you're wasting my time, and walks away. Right? We all do it, we all get, I assume everybody has had at least one telemarketer to call, or someone walk up to you outside a grocery store and say, can I ask you, like, can you do the survey? And you're like, nope, I don't have the time. Has anyone not done anything like that? I didn't think I'd see any hands, but you never, sometimes I get surprised. So like, people just don't do it. Time and money are the big ones. So what does doing a sample give us? Let's think about what's going on here. If I wanted like the average GPA of COS students, and we didn't have like an administration office where I could just say, go ask them what the average GPA is. They release reports on this every year, but they have to do some work. They dig through everyone's transcripts and get the. I don't have access to that. If I wanted to do it, I would have to ask every single person their GPA. Let's say the average GPA is 3.12. And then so like, I can't ask 15,000 people though, so I go and ask 200. Let's say I ask my students. I have about 200 students this semester. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. I'm just estimating. It's in that ballpark area. 200 students is enough students to get a good idea. But if the average GPA is 3.12, the chances of my students having average GPA of 3.12 are astronomically low. Like, I think I have a better chance of winning the lotto than you guys having the exact same average as the entire population of COS. So samples don't usually have the same response or same outcome. So we do a sample, we're not even getting the right goddamn answer. The answer would be 3.12. If I get like 3.19, I don't have the right answer. I don't have the average GPA, but I'm close. They have a different outcome, but usually, tend to be close. If the experiment is done well. So let's talk about the big picture in this class. What we're doing in this class, and then we'll dig into the weeds a little bit more. Does anyone need that up longer? If I yank it next time, just say something. Hold on a second, Jones. The hell is this? What are Manny and Ashley doing in the back? What are you hiding for? Jackie stole your spot. Did she? Y'all got up and left, and you left your spot empty. I thought you guys leave with your bags. I'm like, why fucking take your bags? Ain't no one gonna go through it. Not that I know of. I might. Nah. Wait a little bit longer, I'll ask again. Anyone need it longer? All right. So, big picture, what are we talking big picture? What the hell are we doing in this class? The process of statistics. Statistics. We want to identify our research objective. And the population in question. That pin is dead. I'm not using that one anymore. Let's put that one way over there so I can't reach it anymore. Population doesn't necessarily mean, doesn't have to be people. So when we're saying population, what we're really talking about is a group of things or objects that share a common trait. Cars in the parking lot, or let me rephrase that, vehicles in the parking lot, the common trait is where they are parked. They're all on the property. They don't all have four wheels. I guarantee there's a motorcycle out there somewhere. There's probably some bicycles. So they don't even have four wheels. I can't even say the common trait is four wheels. I can't even say you ride in them. Motorcycles, you ride on it. But they are all parked at COS. So we could do a survey on the cars in the parking lot. I could ask, I wonder how many cars are red that are in the parking lot. I could probably figure that out pretty quick. I could go out and I could count up the cars and like make a tally of the red ones. And I'd probably have to lock the gates so that like people couldn't come and go and fuck my count up. You know what I mean? That would fuck it up pretty good. That's step A. Then once we have that in our head, what we're going to do, step B is conduct the experiment. Conduct an experiment. And it helps if I spell experiment correctly. And collect the data. And notice when I say, like the previous one, I said research objective, that's a pretty loose term. If I want to find out the number of red cars in the parking lot, I don't think anyone in this room would associate that with research, right? That doesn't sound like research. But if I want to know it, and I'm looking up and calculating how to find it and get it, I am doing research. It's just not something you think of as research. Right? Counting red cars in the parking lot doesn't scream research to me. I picture people in lab coats, maybe with a scalpel or some like fucking microscope or some shit. That's it. There's experiments going on there. Or like safety goggles, you're about to blow some shit up. Okay, so we're going to conduct an experiment and collect the data. And this is kind of like what goes on in chapter 1. We're going to talk about how to do this in a good way. That's today and Thursday. Once we have that, we will use the data to develop descriptive statistics. we will cover all that in chapters 2 through 4. So descriptive statistics describe the sample. Now, like if I'm asking my students about average GPA, but my real question is about all of COS students, what am I gonna do with my students' answers? Like if I want to know the average GPA for 15,000 students, but I just ask my 200, where do I go from there? What do you think you would do?
Convert to a percentage,
What?
convert it to a percentage,
Convert it to a percentage?
percentage of people who have lesser than GPA.
Maybe, is it 200 out of the 2,000?
Right, so, but like, let's say I'm not gonna ask any more people, and I wanna like. Figure out the average GPA for everybody else. No, go ahead.
Oh, isn't it 15,000 and then you have to add and divide it? Or add all?
If we're doing average, but that would require me to have all 15,000 students, that is how, you're on that's the process of averaging. What I'm gonna do is I'll have the average of my group. But let's say like minus 3.19. I don't know what the overall population's average GPA is though. What am I gonna do with my 3.19? I'm gonna assume it's pretty fucking close to the overall, right? If I have 200 people and I've done it in a good manner. 200 people is a lot of people. That should be like the average of the two things should be the same. That is actually doing something called inference. So next we perform inference. And so inference is something like this. We infer or make a claim about the overall population. I'm almost off the screen. Based on my sample. So infer is like saying, taking what we know about the sample and saying the same applies to the population. What's true for the small is true for the whole. Or what's true for the part is true for the whole. That's what like inferring something in statistics is about. Now, what's going to come into question here is how reliable is that? How reliable is my result? Hopefully, it's fairly reliable. We are going to dig through that in chapters 5 through 8. Chapters 5 through 8. And then I have all this data. What techniques do I use to do that? To infer something with my data. We are going to do this in chapters 9 through 13. We'll talk about the different approaches we can take with our data. Depending on how we collected our data, what kind of groups we have, what kind of numerical summary we've got. There's different techniques to get a reasonable assumption about the overall population. We never know if we're right. Just gotta tell you that right now. Statistics is not an exact science. We will never know 100% if we're right unless we ask enough of the fucking population that, which is usually all, but like if you have 99%, you've got a good idea that you're spot on. At that point, average doesn't change that much. We'll show that the more there's eventually, you can ask too many questions. And like if you ask too many people, it stops changing the numbers. Like the average doesn't change much. If I ask 10,000 people versus 10,001, you'll see that in this class. We'll look at it in this class. It's called the law of large numbers. That's later on. But we'll go over techniques we get there. Now, a lot of this is under the assumption that you know what the hell data is. I went through all this shit talking about data. That's a vague fucking word. It's not just a robot on Star Trek or an android. Is everyone ready for me to turn the page? All right. So, what is data? Keep using that word. What the hell is it? It is just information. Information collected on an individual. It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual person. When I was talking about the parking lot, it would have been individual cars. So we're collecting information about the individuals in that sample. This type of information comes in two flavors. I guess I could say two types, but I'm a big food lover. So it comes in two flavors. One is called qualitative, and one is called quantitative. Does qualitative look like a word you know? Looks like quality, right? Looks like quality. In fact, if I just take the first 6 letters and add a Y, I have the word quality. Quality, another word for quality is trait or characteristic. Most of the traits or qualities that we would ask a person are not numbers. So this tends to have, these responses here tend to be more categorical. There's the word quantity or fail. I was going to ask you the word quantitative look like a word you know, and the idea was that you were going to say quantity, but the master and commander of this class just fucked that up. Quantity is another way of saying an amount. So we're talking about numbers here. Quantitative data is numerical data. So let's explore some ideas for each of these categories. The blue, there's my pen. What kind of, let's say we're talking about a person, what kind of traits could I determine or ask survey about? Height, we could do height. So would height go in qualitative or quantitative? It will go in quantitative. Maybe I should give you some more information about quantitative first before you make the decision. That is correct. It is quantitative. Quantitative stuff, you can do math with the numbers. And it makes sense. If you're trying to determine if a number meets this thing, just think of finding the average. You got to add some shit up, you got to be able to divide. And does that still have meaning? So height will be over here. Let's list some qualities that are not. Like, let's focus on the qualitative one. Let's think of some qualities that are not number based.
Hair color.
Hair color, that's a good one. Anything else?
Eye color.
Eye color seems pretty good.
Any color, shirt color.
Complexion. Maybe body shape. What?
Language.
Oh, look at this. That's one I've never heard. I got a friend that speaks like fucking 12, 13 languages. He took the time to learn how to read hieroglyphics. He's fucking sicko. I'm not joking. He loves linguistics. He took the time to learn hieroglyphics. I'm sure he knows some Klingon, but I've never heard him try to talk Klingon. I think he knows, even though everyone he hangs out with, even though they like Star Trek, we would make fun of him if he talked in Klingon. We have a certain level of geek that we don't pass. Those all seem pretty good. Shirt color seems like that's going to change on what day it is. The other ones so far don't change that often. Shoe size. Shoe size is a number though. Let's put off on that one for a second.
What about like going your hair type?
Hair tight. That's not bad. That's pretty good. There's quite a few there. Can I think of any that have numbers that I can't do adding or subtracting with?
Your age.
I can add years to my life. Like, hopefully I do. That's the goal, right? To keep adding numbers to my age. And like, I can find the average age of like the people in the class. There are numbers associated with everyone in this room that are not something that you would do math on. What?
I wanna say like your social security number.
Social security number is a perfect example. Social security number. It doesn't make sense to add up social security numbers. I would get made into a laughing stock if I tried to find the average social security number in this room. And I shared that with my colleagues. They would try to get me fired. Like, no, you have no right to teach this course. Anything else?
Phone number.
Phone number. Banner ID.
Oh, birthday.
Birthday. It could be written as a number. And it doesn't really make sense to add them. Zip code works. We all have zip codes that should be similar to each other. I'm sure we're not all from the same zip code though. Even the 5-digit zip code, let alone the 9-digit zip code. I'd have to look to see how that's broken up. I know the 5-digit, they break it up into 4 more, like basically 10,000 categories. 10,000 smaller zip codes. I gotta think maybe it's just like one street worth. Not even the whole street, like a couple blocks on the street gives the 9-digit zip code.
It's something about what the post office delivers to it. One girl at my work just looked it up the other day, so she was telling me, it's something about the post office that delivers to your house.
Right, like my zip code is 93274. They also do a dash and do 4 more. I know there are not 9,999 post offices in the 93274 district. So either they don't have all those numbers filled out. Then maybe they don't. Maybe there's only like 93274 and then they've got like dash and then like a maximum of 3 different numbers that go after it. I don't know, some I'm curious about. So these are numerical. But we don't do math on them. But no math. Let's take a look at the quantitative side. And before we start spitting out examples, I want to point out that this comes in 2 flavors here. We have discrete data. And discrete means it's countable. And it doesn't have to be something you would count, but something you can count. You can count it, but not necessarily would. Leaves on a tree. I think you'd have to take the leaves off the tree to do it. And that's way too much fucking work. Right? Some trees have a lot of leaves. That's a lot of work. Hairs on your head. I don't know that I could do that without shaving. And then I wouldn't even want to do it. I bet I bet it's been done at least at one point. There's got to be an average number of hairs on a person's head. I wonder what it is. Now I wonder what it is. Number of children. This is countable. We use whole numbers for that. No one has 1.5 children.
The average amount of hair is 100,000.
Thank you. I feel that's rounded. Here. Right? That seems like that's rounded to one significant digit. 1,000, or you said 1,000 or 100,000?
100,000.
100,000, 100, and then 3 more zeros. It wasn't like 98,765. That seems like they did an awful lot of fucking rounding right there. They're like 90. We could say 99,000, but fuck it. We're just gonna go with 100. There's your fun fact for the day. I've had several today. I forget what the morning classes had for me. Income falls in here. I could count it. Like if I took my paycheck to the bank and said, will you give me this in ones? And hope to God they didn't like call the police or fucking like the insane asylum and not try to have me locked up. That's a lot of ones. Or even worse, pennies. But I wouldn't want to do it. That's a lot, that's way, most people in here with a job are gonna have way too many pennies. I would argue that I have that with dollars, but that's only been recently since becoming a full-time professor. I didn't make a lot of money before becoming a full-time professor. It's a good gig. That's one category, discrete. The other category we're gonna look at is continuous. Continuous data. Things in this category are things you can measure. Things you measure. Height is in this category. Someone said this earlier. I'm gonna generalize height to say length. That includes things like height, distance. If we're talking about like the average commute to school, it is still a length. And when you're trying to decide if it's something that's continuous or discrete, can you break it down into smaller pieces and it means something? You can break down money to smaller pieces, but eventually you can't. Money, the smallest you're gonna go, at least in American currency, is a penny. And after that, it becomes a lot less meaningful unless you're a fucking gas station. And those sons of bitches like to do like 9/10 of a cent extra. But for the average person, it's not meaningful after a penny. But like distance, I could always break it down further. I didn't drive 13.2 miles. It might have been 13 miles and 500 feet. Maybe there's a 3 inches in there. Maybe there's a 3.267 inches in there. I can always like fine tune my measurements a little bit more, be a little bit more precise. So it's always something you can break down into smaller numbers. Length is one of them. Time is another. Age is like a magic one. Age can go in here, but not usually the way we use it. When we talk about the age of something, age could be here or it could also be up here. Right? If I ask someone their age in this room, Manny, how old are you? You're exactly, is it your birthday? Is it your birthday? Right, he said he's 18, but it's not his birthday. We round down on age. It doesn't matter if his fucking birthday was tomorrow. How old would you say you are if your birthday's tomorrow?
300.
You would say 18. You would not fucking say 364 days. No, you would not.
I probably would.
We round down on age. There is only a very small group of people in this entire world that round up on age. Who are they? Kids. The small was like a little bit of a pun there. Kids round up. If they're 5.5, I'm almost 6. Because to them, getting older is good. Eventually, at some point, you don't want that. We want to round down. Some people round down too much. How many people have that family member that says, I'm fucking 29? And you're like, you got more wrinkles than a fucking pug. There's no way you are 29. Age is one of them. Weight is something else we can measure. There are other things, like if we're gonna go into the sciences, you could do like density and pressure and shit like that, but we're not doing that with people. I guess they do that with people. That's not true. Body mass index, BMI is like a density level. I'm not throwing it in there. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at data. That looks like a good spot to take a 5-minute break. That's all of 1.1. Get up and stretch, use the restroom if you want to. All right, so in 1.2, I'm gonna go over 1.2. I don't know that I have homework for 1.2 for you, but you do need to have at least heard the topics. I'm not very excited about it. Since I didn't assign homework for it, that should give it away. But we need to talk about what variables there are in statistics. And we have two categories. We have the explanatory variable. And the response variable. What comes to mind when you see the word explanatory? Explain, right? This is the variable that explains why there is a specific outcome. Response ends up being, what's the outcome? And I can summarize these in one word for each of them. A word, a sequence, or two words that everyone in here has heard at some point or another. Cause and effect. That's how I know people have heard it. I don't need to say the second one. Cause and effect. That sounds pretty vague though. So let's give you guys a scenario. A survey is conducted. With teenagers. To see if owning a mini fridge in the bedroom leads to obesity. Okay, I think I gave people time to write that shit down. Where did my cap go? There it is. What is the explanatory variable and what is the response variable? Or which one, what in this scenario is a cause and what in this scenario is an effect? The mini fridge is what? The cause. We're saying the mini fridge ownership is causing something. What are we saying it's causing? Obesity. Does that seem like a good scenario, a good survey? Does that seem like something that should be looked into. As it's given right there. It seems like it's something that would be good to look into, but like there's some information that's missing that's gonna make this very unreliable. What kind of things, if we're looking at obesity, what kind of things cause obesity?
So in the.
The contents, right? So what causes obesity? I can give you a list of shit. I'm in that category. But you guys know, fun one is contents. You could have a mini fridge, but it could be stocked with water and fruit. You know, healthy shit. Maybe broccoli. Maybe you're a fucking sicko that likes to eat cold broccoli with no ranch. Cold broccoli with ranch is even pushing it. Cold broccoli without ranch, you should see a doctor. That's not mentally healthy, I think.
Tastes like grass.
I don't like eating trees.
What else? Yeah, right.
Dr. Sebi said, broccoli is bad.
Broccoli is bad. Who said this?
Dr.
Who the hell's that?
He was just a guy that would, say like, a lot of the food that we eat is really bad. Dr. Sebi?
No,
Oh,
he's a holistic doctor.
Yeah,
He also probably doesn't believe in Western medicine, right?
so. Only
That's
like
generally holistic.
alkaline foods and like fruit. It's like really healthy. He had like a case where he cured people of HIV and stuff like that, like cancer.
I question that.
It's pretty crazy.
I question that the results in that.
Yeah.
Like if just eating a specific way and not having certain things cured cancer, I think they would be a little more into Western medicine at this point by now. So I got a question, like maybe the fucking cancer just went away on its own and he didn't do a goddamn thing.
Yeah, basically that's what happened. Like he made people like detoxify their body of like all types of junk food.
Now, it's funny you say this because my wife, we've been married over 19 years. We were married in April, and on July 5th of the very year we were married, she had a seizure while we were at a restaurant, and turns out she was starting to have brain cancer. That was 19 years ago. She's been in remission 18 years. The first way we got lucky, we got her into UC San Francisco right away. Like someone had canceled. They have a good like neuroscience department there. So we were able to get her in within 2 weeks for brain surgery, like literally operation. She's missing 1/8 of her brain. Still fully functional and operable and all that. Thank God. They were able to remove, I don't know what they removed. I don't know what's missing. But she's still hurt. And then it came back a year later and we started looking into holistic things. And there was a Dr. Hulda Clark that said the same kind of shit. Eating this certain way and taking these certain products and doing these kinds of things will work to help. Now, I don't know if it did. She also tried a new form of chemo, but like of all the things I looked up, hers was the only one I saw that we could get the shit at GNC. So she wasn't making a goddamn dime off of us. And I thought, that seems more plausible than those assholes that are out there scamming people. You gotta buy my product to, you know, be cured. That makes me twitch, like I hesitate. I think you're trying to scam people and probably a low life. But I'm not saying Dr. Sebi is it. Maybe he says the same things. You can eat healthy shit. You don't have to buy anything from his website. Maybe he's legit. I don't know if that worked for my wife. She did that shit for like a year. She did the new chemo and she's been in remission for 18 years, which is good because they told her she had less than 5 when that all started. So like she's one of their poster childs out in San Francisco of like success cases. So like, I don't know if it like actually worked or if it was the chemo, but it was worth the try. That was a complete tangent that I completely veered off of. All because I said broccoli. That's crazy. What other things cause obesity?
Genetics.
Awesome.
Genetics, what else? What do you mean by that? Oh, no, what do you mean by like overeating because of it?
Yeah, like say that you got like a family size pack or something. And you just bought it, you planned on like having it for a week.
So
You
overeating,
got a little bit of that.
overeating or diet. You have a poor diet. It may not have anything to do with the mini fridge. You probably don't eat exclusively out of a mini fridge. Anybody got anything else?
Activity.
Exercise. I have not heard someone say mental health before. But I'm gonna say that's probably a fucking good one. We're even gonna talk about shortly how mind over matter really fucking makes a difference. Anything else? Context, genetics, overeating, diet, exercise, mental health, medications. That was one I hadn't heard before. That was said this morning. Medications. Some medications cause you to retain water. Shit like that. Or you just are fucking hungry even though you're not. Your body is sending you hunger impulses even though you just fucking ate. What?
Like being bored. Like my little
Yeah.
friend, when he's bored, all he does is eat.
Yeah, that's just being snacky because you're bored. That goes in the overeating diet category.
You're not active.
Active is under the exercise level. Well, we'll call it part of that. That seems like a good enough list. There's probably more if we really dug down deep and knew some shit. These are all called lurking variables. They are variables that may affect the outcome. But are not accounted for in the experiment. Yes, thank you. I know what today's fun fact was in the morning class. I'm going to ask, raise your hand if you have ever heard of a mini fridge that is entirely sold and marketed for skincare products. Couple people. Like half. Most of them women in this class. That said yes. I've never heard a whole fucking fridge for your skincare products. I get that there's like if you've got like cream in it or something like that, there's gotta be some products that are better refrigerated.
They're normally like. Yeah,
They're not a mini fridge, they're like a mini.
Yeah, they're like desktop. Mini.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They're that small, just put them in your fucking fridge.
They have a mirror on them.
But it's better because if you can set it up where you're.
Yeah, your
Your
little
makeup.
table thing.
Convenience.
If you got the money, convenience is definitely something to think about. I know when I became a full-time teacher, shit changed. The dollar menu wasn't something I looked at anymore. Right, thank fucking God. No, I don't wanna have fucking rice with as a side dish,
Because of inflation, there is no dollar menu anymore.
right? I've noticed that shit. Yeah, I had never heard of a they didn't bother to fucking tell me it was super small. They just said a skincare mini fridge and it was sold and marketed that way and I'm like. What the fuck? And then I asked and like half the guys had heard of it too. And I'm like,
Toolboxes too, so like a toolbox, they have it like tiny for like jewelry. But it's just like a
and they,
box, like a pull-out toolbox.
So it's like jewelry box size, but for tools.
No, it's like, it looks like a real toolbox, but it's like tiny, but it's for jewelry.
Oh, so it's a jewelry box,
Physical to like a toolbox.
but it is a jewelry box.
Yeah,
Jewelry boxes aren't supposed, you, in general, don't have a jewelry box that should be the size of a fucking real toolbox. So having a small, like, look, that seems like a weird. Actually, that's fucking brilliant. If you're breaking into someone's home, what is one of the last places you're checking for expensive shit?
I mean, tools are pretty expensive, bro.
But in a small toolbox, you're not finding a fucking power drill in a small toolbox.
Tools are expensive. Even a small brand.
I guess you're at a risk there. If it's small enough, if it's too small, then they look at it and go, and they're aware of tool prices. They might just take the whole fucking thing and not even look at it. And go, yeah,
there's many fridges for birth control too now. Cause certain birth control can't be put like outside fridges.
okay. This is the classic, this is gonna take a little long. Can you explain to me why that would need its own fridge? Rather than say the fridge in your fucking kitchen.
So people don't wanna put what they put inside of them in a different place and with their food. So they have their own, there's like these little mini fridges just for, that keeps it at a certain temperature.
Do they think like that it's gonna affect the food or the food's gonna affect it?
Maybe for convenience, same thing with the makeup, not running to the fridge with the.
How often do you need birth control or like the refrigerated birth control? Where like convenience is now a thing.
Every 3 weeks.
That's not very often. That's worth making the trip to the fucking fridge that's crazy. Now I gotta look up different fridges. Now I bet it looks identical to the skincare fridge and they just fucking slapped a different name on it. But I'm thinking it even needs less space than the skincare fridge. How big?
It's the new ring, it's like a little tiny ring.
That ain't shit. That goes in like the fucking egg drawer that you don't put eggs in. Right? Crazy. She's like, don't make fun of me. I got one of those, motherfucker.
No, I don't, I didn't like it.
Seems like excessive to me. Seems like the bigger thing is the electrical cost. Like that's just another drain. If you're already buying it and it's electrical cost, and that can't take up that much room. I can see some people put on a lot of skincare shit. My wife uses her fair share of lotion. Me, my shit's gotta feel like sandpaper before I wanna like go grab lotion. So people are different. All right. So let's expand on this. We have these lurking variables. Let's say we make the experiment change a little bit. Let's say we alter the scenario so that our survey accounts for exercise, diet, and mini fridge. It asks these questions. It just asks questions. It doesn't try to control them. Fun shit you can learn in class. Wild. So what do we think about this one? Let's say we had a survey where we asked questions. And let's say we included them all. Let's say we asked what medications they take. Genetics is a little one that's hard to ask, but I guess we could ask family history. We ask what medications or exercise level. Can we determine that the mini fridge is causing obesity at that point? No, even having all those things in the survey don't help. If there's more than one thing that might be a cause, that's a dead pin. Let's throw that bad boy away. If there's more than one potential cause, that isn't being controlled, we don't know what is the actual cause. Which thing is the actual cause? So it's impossible to figure out. We call these confounding variables. I like this class. There's a lot of participation in this class. There's some slow answers in the beginning, but people are now starting to spit out shit. Whether it's right or wrong, a little less worried. Just participating in the class. Is anyone having a bad time? You know, if you're having a bad time, you don't have to be here. Well, but you probably won't get a good grade, but you can't be having a bad time, Manny. Why'd you raise your hand? It's not bad. It's just not fun. Why in the hell would you do this? Did you think out the possible outcomes of trying to break my heart?
That's twice.
Which seems like a very weird way of saying it. Let me down seems like a little more like break my heart's very specific.
I'm down a whole letter grade.
Right? It's just great, it's just fucking in free fall at this point. No. Okay, so those are it for those. We do have a couple other categories I need to tell you about. We're done with that scenario though. We can do something called an observational study. That is an R and that is a V. Observational study. In these studies, we measure the response by observation. Maybe not watching, this could be survey questions and shit like this, but so no controls in place. No attempts to influence the outcome. This is different than the designed experiment. In a designed experiment, individuals are assigned to a group. And the explanatory variable is intentionally controlled. Or changed. So like the difference between these two, the top one is like the survey we just said. Asking teenagers if they have a mini fridge. The design experiment in the same question would be starting with like 200 teenagers, none of whom owned a mini fridge. Giving half of them a mini fridge for their bedroom. And then like checking their progress over time and seeing if the mini fridge people gained weight while the other ones didn't. That's like a design experiment. That's done in such a way that it should, with things like genetic and exercise and shit like that, it should all balance out. By randomly assigning people to two different groups, we should have people that exercise a lot and people that exercise a little in both groups. So it should, like, that stuff should wash out. So by deliberately making it where one group doesn't have mini fridges and one group does, and then checking on progress over time, we could see if that would work. I don't know if that seems very fucking ethical. Seems pretty fucked up, right? Let's see if having a mini fridge makes you fat. Here's a mini fridge. No, they can't tell you what they're doing in that case. Because if they did, that would be in your head and it would modify how you use that mini fridge. You're like, no, I don't want to be treated. I don't want to be the obese one. But if you don't know that, they'd have to lie to you. Be like, give us feedback in 3 months on how this mini fridge worked for you. No, sir, it's not for skincare products. Okay, so one of these is good and one of these is bad. Not bad. I'm going to give you a scenario. Completely different. It's August. It's hot. Ice cream sales are up right now. Crime is up right now. Crime tends to be higher right now. Does high ice cream sales cause crime to go up? No, I can't think of it. Like maybe if you're trying to afford your ice cream habit. That's a stretch. That's a real stretch.
There's some crazy people.
Does crime cause ice cream sales to go up? The other way around. One is not causing the other. This is a scenario where it's called correlation. Observational studies can only show correlation. And it could be that the two things go up together. It could be that the two things go down together. It could be that one goes up while the other one goes down, like an inverse sort of relationship. But correlation doesn't show cause. No, and what they call it is causation. This is like the original survey that we were talking about with the mini fridge. Even when we put a bunch of shit in, we can't say the mini fridge is one that's causing it because all we're doing is an observational study. Now, if we design the experiment where we can control it, we can start deciding if the mini fridge does. But there's a better example here that most people have at least heard of, and that's your whole double-blind study. With placebos. This happens in the pharmaceutical world. You work for a pharmaceutical company XYZ, and they think they have a cure for cancer. That seems like pretty goddamn good. You could take a magic pill and make cancer go away. I'm pretty sure whoever comes up with that is gonna be more famous than fucking Albert Einstein. More famous than Lord Vader. Lord Vader's pretty famous. Everybody knows his face. But the guy that cures cancer, or the girl that cures cancer, is going down in the history books forever. A single blind study is where the patient doesn't know what they are taking. They think they are taking the cure. Unfortunately, you can't do this and find out good results. When you have you're doing a pharmaceutical company, you have to have a group that's taking the cure or whatever it is, and you have to have a control group that isn't taking anything, but thinks that they are. It should look the same. If it has a taste, it should taste the same. If it's like not food, it's an injection, it should look the same when like in the syringe. It should have the same, like if there's a tingly feeling, it should do that. It should be all the same. But there's no active ingredient in it to cure cancer. So they do that in a single blind to address the whole mental health or mind over matter thing that goes on. Sometimes thinking you're taking something is all that it takes. You really can control your own health with thoughts to some extent. I don't know if that happens with cancer, but it might. Who knows? That's what these studies are for. A single blind is the patient doesn't know what they're taking, but the person that knows that's handing it out knows what they're giving to each person. This is not a very good way to do a study when you're trying to hand out a cure. If it's not something where you're saving someone's life, a single blind's all right. If it's something where like the outcome really fucking matters, some people think they're getting a cancer cure and they're fucking taking sugar candy. You know, they're taking something that does nothing. It's like aspirin, does nothing. A double blind is where the person that's giving out the medicine doesn't know what they're giving out. They think they're giving out the cure. That seems really important to me because if I were distributing medicine and I knew I was giving someone that thought I was curing their cancer, something that didn't do anything, I don't know that I could make eye contact, right? Could you look them in the eye while you're handing it to them and they're looking at you with like fucking hope and joy and you're knowing, nope, I'm not doing a goddamn thing for you. So they do double blind so that you think you're giving out, they tell them all you're giving out the cure so that you're gonna interact with people in an appropriate manner. This is very similar to the whole firing squad thing. You get a bunch of people, you hand them all guns. Only a couple, maybe even only one has a real live round. The rest have empties, blanks. They're shooting blanks. The gun fires, it makes a sound, the shells discharge. But you didn't do anything. This is the exact opposite of the pharmaceutical one. You want to think you're curing them. Firing squad, you don't want to go to sleep at night going, I just fucking murdered that guy. He didn't do anything to me. Just my boss, my military commander said I had to shoot him, so I did. You eventually, unless you're a psychopath, start losing sleep over it. But if you know only one of you out of 10 people has the fucking bullet, it's really easy to go, it wasn't me. And you can go to sleep for a life. Unless you do a couple hundred shots, you can pretty much think, it wasn't me most of the way. Well, 100 shots isn't really it. It's probably more like 20. Maybe this sounds like a good statistical thing for the end of the course. No, I need a note to self. Use firing squads later. We can do this. I'll teach it, lead on hypothesis testing with it. That's a good idea. I like it. So double blind study does show causation. That's where all this was going. To give you examples of what does and what doesn't, the ice cream is an easy way to explain what correlation is. These are long words. Causation means cause. What's the cause? That's what causation means. We're almost done. We only got a little bit more.
By causation, you mean, the outcome, just show the outcome?
We can say that the explanatory variable is causing the outcome. So if it was like the mini fridge thing, we could say the mini fridge was causing obesity. If we did like a control scenario with that. You deliberately have to assign who's getting a mini fridge, who isn't. You would have to not tell them what they're doing or why you're giving it to them. But then you can show causation. Okay. Couple more. Was anyone needing that longer? I think I went on and on about the other shit long enough that everyone had it written down. A couple more things you'll see. Cross-sectional studies. The info can be collected all at once. Or over time. If it's the ongoing thing. Again, I'm not testing you on anything in this 1.2 section. I don't even think I assigned homework for 1.2. So there's a lot of vocabulary in the last 45 minutes that is more for knowledge and not something you're getting tested on. A case control study. Here we're doing something where we're collecting data long-term, or we're doing it where it's called retrospective, where the individuals are telling us what happened in the past. That's what retrospective means. Another word for you is cohort. This is a group of individuals studied over a long period. At least in this statistical sense. A lot of scholarships that have a lot of scholar recipients will have a large group of scholarship winners every year or however frequently they give them out, and then tend to put those in cohorts. They say this is the first cohort, the second cohort, but it's they're not. I don't think they're doing any statistical studies on us. They might be. Another word that I will use it one more time in this class, and that is in the next definition. A frame is the list of individuals in a population. I would say it's like the phone book, but I'm betting half of you don't know what a fucking phone book is anymore. They still get them out, don't they? I don't know that we've received one in a while.
I looked up at the house today. I received it a couple months ago.
So look up, if you've got phone books and you don't use them, look up how to tear a phone book by hand. Watch a YouTube video on it. It's not as hard as you think. It's a little gimmicky, but it's fucking really impressive to most people that don't know the gimmick. Look it up. And if you got a bunch of phone books, do it at Thanksgiving. Just say, check this out. rip that motherfucker in half. Or even just get it started. After you get it started, it tends to get harder after you get it started. But once you get it, the start is the like, even getting the first rip in, people are like. They get all excited. This is a show of brute strength. No, it's not. Okay, so list of it. That is the worst way to spell individuals whatsoever. Let's try to actually spell it correctly. I'm missing a couple of others there. This is opposed to the census. The census is a frame, like above, the list of individuals with their characteristics. We say census. Most people have heard of the census in a different format. But it is the same thing. The US Census is done every 10 years. You would think that would have the most accurate population information whatsoever. I would argue it's not any better than doing a fucking sample and going off a sample. Because a US Census, if you don't know what it is, they go door to door and ask you shit about your household. How many people live here, the ages, income ranges, ethnicity, a bunch of shit like that. Some of it is for determining like how many representatives we're gonna have in the House of Representatives, but other is just like getting demographics on the people. It's not that fucking accurate. Because, and just think about Visalia or Tulare if you live in Tulare. You've got people doing it, let's say you get 100 people to do it. That's a lot of fucking houses to go door to door. It's probably gonna take at least a week. For 100 people to go door to door to collect the information. It takes a while to get the information. Sometimes you gotta go back because no one's there to answer, shit like that. After a week, shit's changed. People have been born, people have died. We now have new citizens. They're fucking 3 days old. We have people that are mourning because they just lost someone. You know, the population is no longer accurate even a week later, not even a day later. So that's the US Census. That's the shit for 1.2. 1.3 is on simple random samples. Which is how all experiments should be done. Simple is a little hard to describe, but they tend to be talking more about the simple is applying to the random. It's probably better to go with this with a bad example. The bad example is what Hefe talked about doing for his average GPA. Hefe asking his 200 students their GPA. And trying to apply that average to the entire US population. I primarily, almost every single one of my classes this semester is in Tulare. I have only people that are either live in Tulare or are willing to drive here. I would argue that most of the people that are willing to drive here are only because either other night classes were full or they saw me on Rate My Professors. Otherwise, you would find a closer spot. What?
Parking problems. You go to Visalia and try to park,
Interesting.
there's no spots
At night there isn't?
at all times of the day.
I had a class last night and I had to park at the very last, so
No shit.
I do it again.
Oh no. Tulare, it's easy to park. I like this campus so much more. That hall out there is so much nicer than the Visalia campus. So this is bad because there's nothing random about it. I asked my students, they're all Tulare students. I'm not getting a good representation of the population. If I'm only asking people that are willing to come to Tulare for whatever reason. I'm, for the most part. Eliminating people from Hanford. I'm sure I have one or two. Sprinkled in my classes that drive from Hanford all the way over here to take a class. But. I'm getting specific students that chose me for whatever reason. That's not a good way to pick 200 students. A better way to pick 200 students would be like. Maybe asking people in the hallway here. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I'll probably give both classes that way. Doing a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. Then doing the same thing on another Monday and Tuesday over in Visalia. And doing the same thing on another Monday and Tuesday over in Hanford. So that I've hit all 3 campuses. Different times of the day on the 2 different main days of the week that like different classes are. We have a lot of Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursdays. So if I do Monday and Tuesday, I should get most groups. Like if I do it on Visalia though, like where? Here it's fairly easy. Most students come to the B building for at some point. Not all of us. There are some people that are in the ag that have done all their classes over here, but they're still doing stuff in ag. Or the equestrian center and stuff like that, or welding. They're taking what they need over here, they're doing stuff over in the backside. But so like if I tell you though, maybe I could do it in front of the library, then I could do it in like the quad. I gotta do a lot of shit to make it random. The same thing would be like trying to do at a grocery store. If you want to do a survey outside a grocery store, you don't ask the first 100 people that walk up to you at a grocery store, right? Like do that and call it quits? No. You're only getting people, if you do that, you're only getting people that are there on a specific day of the week at a specific time. And it might even be date related. Like if you hit right after food stamps comes out, you might get a different and a response based set of outcomes than you did if you asked when food stamps weren't coming out. Store matters. If you ask shit at Foods Co. or Save Mart, those have different customers. Save Mart's more expensive in general. Like Target versus Walmart. There's not a lot of overlap between Target customers and Walmart customers. Which is weird because they sell the same shit for the most part. There's not a lot of overlap. I'll talk about this more, but it's kind of like randomize it. I call it a wrap. GTFO. For those of you that don't know, that means get the fuck out.